me now to explain is Martin Pelletier, Senior Portfolio Manager at Wellington-Altus Private Counsel. Good morning. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. I should begin by saying it looks like oil prices are steady today as we were waiting for markets to open and react to what we saw happen over the weekend in Venezuela. Can you begin by explaining why Canadians and why our sector, our energy sector, is watching so closely what happens in Venezuela?
Good question. So looking at oil markets, it's steady as she goes, but oil stocks in Canada are selling off, especially those with exposure to heavy oil, as much as 8% today. And that's telling you a lot. Canada exports 4.2 million barrels a day of crude. 93% of that goes to the U.S. And that's a significant part of our merchandise exports. I think it's like 16%. And oil itself, with other products, 5 to 10% of GDP. So it's a significant component of our economy. Now, the issue is that we send about 1 to 1.5 million barrels a day of that 4.2 down to the U.S. Gulf Coast, which are designed specifically to take our heavier crude. Now, Venezuela itself could return to the days of past and replace that Canadian crude, which we were more than happy to fill in the gap that was happening with Venezuelan crude falling. But that could come back on, and that could disrupt those barrels, either disrupt the barrels itself or reduce the price that Canada receives. So that's what the concern is here, and the economic implications of Venezuelan crude coming into the U.S. and replacing what we sell there.
That sounds like potentially a big-time disruption. So if the U.S. does take control of Venezuela's vast oil reserves, that's a bad thing for Canada. Do you think that's what Trump ultimately wants here, Martin?
No, I mean, there's a lot of smarter people in regards to geopolitical side than myself, and I like to, surround myself with those types of people because it certainly provides a lot more clarity as to some of the motivations around Trump. And, you're looking at the Monroe Doctrine, you're looking at China, Iran, and Russia and their influence in Venezuela. Oil, I call it to be icing on the cake, and a really nice side benefit for the U.S. I've been down to Venezuela. I've seen the resource potential there right at the beginning of the Chavista regime. It was tremendous, even more so than what I've seen in Canada. And so the threat is a legitimate one. Now, we've only had a weekend of changes. There still is the same regime in power with the exception of Maduro not being there. And there is a lot of corruption, and the infrastructure has been severely damaged over 2 decades of neglect. So it's going to take a lot of time for that oil to come back on the market. And we don't know as to the appetite for coming back for U.S. companies going in there. Now, having said that, there have been reports of hedge funds and other capital providers looking at raising some billions of dollars to backstop U.S. producers to go back in there, but U.S. producers that are experienced in dealing with high-risk jurisdictions. And I find it quite troubling, or from a Canadian perspective, that capital is willing to take that much of a risk to go into Venezuela and not come into Canada because of the political hurdles that we've placed on our infrastructure development to get our oil to Tidewater.
Just as a side note, Martin, you mentioned the Monroe Doctrine. Trump has now dubbed it the Don Roe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Just a point there I had to make on that one.
America, Don Roe.
Right. So just before we wrap up then, as we wrap up, what sectors of the Canadian economy are most likely to feel the impact first?
Well, you look at the stock market today. I mean, energy producers, oil field services, people are hitting the sell button first and asking questions later. Transportation, manufacturing follows fuel costs shift. Public finances and trade are next. Energy exports were $208 billion in 2024. And if you hadn't had these kinds of trade, the trade deficit would have ballooned by over $1 trillion the last decade. There's 400,000 jobs tied to the sector. And so that's how critical it is to the entire economy. You have a situation where tariffs are coming in, impacting primarily Ontario, You have real estate market that's rolling over in Ontario. You have land claim issues that are preventing capital from going into British Columbia. And now you have this impacting Alberta producers. Couldn't have come at a worse time. And so it's going to impact the entire country. And hopefully that's enough of a wake-up call to put forward and get this memorandum of understanding put into action and getting a pipeline built so we can get that oil to other markets besides Dunroe and Donald Trump.
Great to have you with us today. Martin Pelletier is the Senior Portfolio Manager at Wellington-Altus Private Counsel. We'll talk to you again. All right, we're going to